Hey guys, welcome back. We're doing another Bible reading today, as always. We are starting Genesis chapter 41, verses 1 through 36. Sorry, it continues on the next page, so I had to look at it a lot. So let's get started. This is called Joseph Interprets Pharaoh's Dreams. After 2 whole years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile, and there came up out of the Nile 7 sleek and fat cows, and they grazed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows, ugly and thin, came up out of the Nile after them, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the Nile. The ugly and thin cows ate up the 7 sleek and fat cows, and Pharaoh awoke. Then he fell asleep and dreamed a second time 7 ears of grain, plump and good, were growing on one stalk. Then 7 ears, thin and blighted by the east wind, sprouted after them. The thin ears swallowed up the 7 plump and full ears. Pharaoh awoke, and it was a dream. In the morning his spirit was troubled, so he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all his wise men. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them to Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "I remember my faults today. Once Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the captain of the guard. We dreamed on the same night, he and I, each having a dream with its own meaning. A young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. When we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us, giving an interpretation to each according to his dream. As he interpreted to us, so I turned out. I was restored to my office, and the baker was hanged." Then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, for he was hurriedly brought out of the dungeon. When he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came in before Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have had a dream. There is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph answered Pharaoh, "It is not I. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the banks of the Nile, and 7 cows, fat and sleek, came out of the Nile and fed in the reed grass. Then 7 other cows came up after them, poor, very ugly, and thin. Never had I seen such ugly ones in all the land of Egypt. The thin and ugly cows ate up the first 7 fat cows, but when they had eaten them, no one would have known that they had done so, for they were still as ugly as before. Then I awoke. I fell asleep a second time, and I saw in my dream 7 ears of grain, full and good, growing on one stalk, and 7 ears withered, thin and blighted by the east wind, sprouting after them, and the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. But when I told it to the magicians, there was no one who could explain it to me." Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh's dreams are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 empty ears blighted by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is as I told Pharaoh. God has shown to Pharaoh what he is about to do. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. After them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land. The plenty will no longer be known in the land because of the famine that will follow, for it will be very grievous. And the doubling of Pharaoh's dreams means that the thing is fixed by God, and God will shortly bring it about. Now therefore let Pharaoh select a man who is discerning and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers of the land, take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plenteous years. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and lay up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to befall the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine." Okay, so here is this story. So, just like we learned in the last story, we learned that Joseph, who's in prison, interprets 2 dreams, 2 different guys. One gets to go back and work for the Pharaoh, and one gets hanged. And he's interpreting God's meaning of these dreams, right? What God is saying is going to happen. What God is interpreting is going to happen. God's saying this, and Joseph is interpreting that from these dreams. So, as in this one, the same thing is occurring. The Pharaoh, the top person of the Egypt, the Pharaoh in charge, he has 2 dreams that are similar, meeting with the 7 ears of corn and the 7 cows. And it says they're going to have 7 great years of lovely food and all this resources and just amazing. And then the 7 years after, they're going to have a famine where they're not going to be able to make any food or have any resources of any kind like that. So Joseph interpreted that's the Pharaoh, and Pharaoh decides, okay, for those 7 years of bountiful food being produced, we're going to save 1/5 each year. So then they're going to keep that. So when the 7 years of famine come, then they have enough food to get them through that 7 years of famine when they can't grow any food. And I think that's very smart of the Pharaoh that he did it that way, and he's believing Joseph and believing God in that. So I think that's a great thing, and that we should listen carefully to people and signs as such. And I don't really know what else to say. I think it's a great story. I think we should listen more and really think about what others are saying as well as what's going on in our minds, and try to listen to God as much as we can. We're going to end there. We'll finish chapter 41 tomorrow, which is Friday. And I will see you guys then. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.